Today we're talking about the forbidden truth about death, banned by the church. Now today we're exploring this idea in a Gnostic text called On the Origin of the World, and this is a strange one. Even for Gnostic texts, it gets pretty weird. So this is going to be a very good stream. But one of the things that we're going to be taking a look at today is the creation of death and what this has to do with a secret war in heaven, as well as the jealousy of God, the retaliation of God, God being jealous of the power that humanity has. So this is going to be really good as we explore the concept of death, the concept of what humanity really is, humanity being something that is much different than what God describes, and a lot more. We'll see how far we get into this. There's some, like I said, there's some very interesting things in this text, even as far as Gnosticism goes. So let's jump right into it. Before I do, as always, please like and subscribe, because you know my channel is all about getting this information out there, spreading information so that we can raise consciousness. And when you hit like and subscribe, hey, it tells the algorithm this is a video to spread around. So please do that. It helps a lot. Also, if you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. It is the best way to support my work. When you support on Patreon, you get access to our members only videos. We have a bunch of them and a new members only video every single week. So please do that. Also, let's see, watch out for scammers in the comments. There's a bunch of scammers, people pretending to be me, saying to join my WhatsApp and join my Telegram, stuff like that. I don't have a WhatsApp, I don't have a Telegram. That's not me. Don't fall for it. Also, there are a lot of people out there who don't like what I'm doing, who don't like the information that I'm putting out there, and who don't like what we're doing. So they're spreading a lot of misinformation and disinformation about me and our group and what we do. So just keep your eyes open. Don't fall for the bullshit. Use your logic and reason. All right, so here we go. The forbidden truth about death, banned Gnostic text. What's going on? What's going on here? What is it that the church didn't like? What is this book on the origin of the world? So if you didn't see last week's video, we actually were reading on the origin of the world. If you didn't weren't there for that, that's fine. You don't need to have seen that to understand what's going on right here and right now. But essentially, let me give you a quick synopsis, quick rundown of what's going on. So according to On the Origin of the World, the God of this world is not the true God. He is an evil being, an evil creature, an evil entity known as Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth is an evil entity born from darkness. There's a true realm, a realm of divine light, which is higher than this being. And Yaldabaoth is the creator of this world, and it says that he created the earth as his footstool. And so he has different servants that help him with his creation and is constantly on a quest to ensnare and enslave humanity. But on the origin of the world, we haven't yet gotten to the part where Yaldabaoth creates humanity. We're still... it's still prior to that. The earth is created, but humanity has not been created yet. Now, one of the children of Yaldabaoth, the creator god, is named Sabaoth. And we saw that Sabaoth is has some parallels to Lucifer, because what does Sabaoth do? Sabaoth goes, hey, I don't like what's going on here. Yaldabaoth, God is evil, and Sabaoth ends up rebelling against God and causing a war in heaven and joining Sophia and the realm and joining the realm of light. So we see that Sabaoth, one of the sons of Yaldabaoth, the evil creator god, starts a war in heaven, and then joins. Well, prior to that, has already joined the realm of light that is superior to this evil god of darkness. So that's where we left off. And so if we take a look now at where we left off, it says Yaldabaoth retaliates by creating death. Now, we're going to take a look at a couple different things here. So we're going to read this, which has to do with death. But we're also going to, after we read this, we're going to take a quick detour into the secret book of John, another banned Gnostic text, which is one of my favorites. Well, God, there's so many. I really like the secret book of John. I really like the Gospel of Thomas. I think those are probably my two favorites, the secret book of John and the Gospel of Thomas. I also really like the reality of the rulers. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. You're not here to hear that. You're here to hear about death. So we're going to take a quick stop into the secret book of John, but before we do, okay, so there was just this war in heaven. Yaldabaoth, the evil creator god, is not happy about this. It says Yaldabaoth retaliates by creating death. And you can read all these books for free on gnosis.org, by the way. They're all free there. When the chief creator of chaos, remember, this chief creator of chaos is the God of the Old Testament, the God of the Bible, the God that Christians worship today. That's what the Gnostics consider to be this evil being. So when the chief creator of chaos saw his son Sabaoth, and that the glory in which he dwells is more exquisite than all the authorities of chaos, he was jealous of him. And we're going to see this idea of jealousy a lot. Okay, so it's Yaldabaoth is jealous of Sabaoth. Yaldabaoth, we're going to see, is jealous of humanity because humanity is actually more powerful than Yaldabaoth. And I'll explain why. A lot of people are confused at this point because they're like, well, what do you mean? How can humans be more powerful than God, basically? And we're going to see exactly why that is. We're going to get to that. But you're going to see that this theme of jealousy comes up a lot. And the reason why this theme of jealousy comes up a lot is it's very much defined by this God. This God is, and if you even read the Bible, God is constantly saying, I am a jealous God. There is no God but me. You shall worship no other God but me. Very jealous, very angry God, very insecure kind of God. Now, according to Jungian psychology, which is a form of analytical psychology, some people have interpreted Yaldabaoth as being representative of the ego. And I like that interpretation. It makes a lot of sense. Sometimes the shadow self, sometimes the ego. I think both apply, but the ego is a really interesting one because Yaldabaoth goes, it's me, I am the only God. There is no God but me. It's a very I, me, jealous, selfish, etc. So a lot of people in a Jungian interpretation regard Yaldabaoth as being symbolic of the ego. And to triumph or conquer Yaldabaoth is to conquer the ego, to realize that one is more than the ego, to realize that one is not actually the ego, that you are more than that. And of course, in our system, in the Neogenian system, we understand ourselves to be eternal beings of frequencies, souls or zetas, as we call them. So anyway, I digress. You have Yaldabaoth, who's jealous as usual, as he is, and is jealous because Sabaoth is in a place that is more exquisite than all the authorities of chaos, all the powers of chaos, all the heavens that Yaldabaoth created, these realms of light that his son now inhabits is greater than his, and he doesn't like this. And when he was angry, he conceived death from his own death, and it was set up over the sixth heaven. Sabaoth had been snatched away from there, and thus the number of the six authorities of chaos was completed. So, okay, so you have this idea, Yaldabaoth is not happy, Yaldabaoth is jealous, and in his jealousy and angry, he creates death, and he sets death over in the sixth heaven, and I'm pretty sure that that's where Sabaoth was from, because it says that Sabaoth had been snatched away from there. Let me just, I don't want to waste my time trying to search through this, but it sounds like basically he creates death to replace Sabaoth in the sixth heaven from this. So it says he conceived death from his own death. Now that's a very odd sentence. What does that mean? That Yaldabaoth creates death from his own death. Now you can actually understand this in a couple different ways. When it says that Yaldabaoth was created, or that death was created from his own death, you can look at this as meaning either basically Yaldabaoth is this being of destruction and even self-destruction, and it's going to lead to its own destruction. So it's a very destructive being. So it's kind of like saying out of its own destruction, death was born. Out of its own self-destructive tendencies, its own destructive tendencies, death was born. Another way one could look at it is that Yaldabaoth is a limited being. Yaldabaoth is not a being from the realms of divine light. Yaldabaoth is a realm from the realm of darkness, and so Yaldabaoth is a limited being, and death is a kind of limit. So it could be this production of death from the idea of limitation. Ultimately, though, when we look at these things, it's up to interpretation. We don't know for sure which one is the right one, or the one that the author meant. But these are some of the ideas that we can come to, and I think that this makes a lot of sense. Yaldabaoth was a destructive sort of being, and it's born from its own destruction, its own internal energies. It sort of had this latent potential within it to create death. So anyway. So Sabaoth, so Yaldabaoth creates death because he's angry at his son Sabaoth. And it says, then since death was androgynous, so death is an androgynous being, he mixed with his nature and conceived 7 androgynous children. So now you're having children being born from death, and these children are also androgynous. And these are the names of the males: envy, wrath, weeping, sighing, mourning, lamenting, tearful, and groaning. And these are the names of the females: wrath, grief, lust, sighing, cursing, bitterness, and quarrelsomeness. They had intercourse with one another, and each one conceived 7, so that the children total 49 androgynous demons. Okay, so what's going on here? This is really interesting, and there's a lot happening in this. So the thing is that you have these idea of androgynous beings. First of all, because Gnosticism always deals with like duality and pairing and balance. So you have these forces that are balanced with like masculine forces and feminine forces that are ultimately androgynous because they have these different masculine and feminine energies. And so being born from death come all these negative beings: envy, wrath, weeping, sighing, mourning, lamenting, tearful, groaning, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And when you start to realize, because there's different ways one could take this. One could take this as being literal. One could be like, oh, wow, there's this being named Yaldabaoth who created the world and created a being named Death, and there's these beings called envy and jealousy and blah, 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 blah. Whereas really, though, it's in my opinion, a very, strong opinion, this needs to be taken metaphorically. So what's happening metaphorically? Well, remember previously I said that Yaldabaoth kind of represents the ego. Well, you can understand these demons or archons or rulers as being structures that one has to overcome, ideas, structures of the mind. And death is a very powerful one, and from them you get all these other ideas: wrath and grief and lust and sighing and cursing and quarrelsomeness, bitterness, weeping, envy, etc. And these are, so when we look at another banned gospel like the Gospel of Mary, what happens? In the Gospel of Mary, Mary describes the secret teachings of Jesus, and in the secret teachings of Jesus, Mary describes the soul basically being liberated from matter, and as the soul liberates itself and becomes transcendent and liberates matter, it confronts all these different demons. And these demons are things like wrath and ignorance, and I forget all of them, but different things like this: wrath, ignorance, envy, etc., etc. And the soul overcomes them. I overcome ignorance through my understanding of the world. I overcome, it's like I understand. And so you can see it more as, rather than a battle with literal demons, you're battling your own internal demons. And to liberate oneself, you go against weeping and mourning and lamenting. You have to conquer death. You have to conquer the ego. You have to, and by conquering death, it's like meaning realizing that we're more than death, that we are eternal beings. Now, of course, always be careful and be safe. You want to take very good care of your body. Your body is mortal, but we are eternal minds. Ultimately, we are souls, we are zetas, and as these beings, we are sort of confined. We are confined and trapped by a host of demons. That's the whole thing. These demons are archons, they're rulers. They trap us. We are trapped. We are prisoners of these demons, but these demons are, like wrath and envy and jealousy and et cetera, et cetera. Now, I just want to say real quick, of course, we're looking in terms of Gnosticism. When we look at healthy psychology, particularly, in our system of inner star actualization in the Neogenian system, we understand that the shadow self, the dark parts of ourselves, aren't things that are necessarily that we are, we have to integrate them. And integration is a lot different than, it means dealing with them. So ultimately, what conquering a demon more is like is or a certain structure of the self is actually like taming it, or not even taming it, well, more like befriending it in a certain way. And what I mean by that is if you have a certain issue, let's say anger, let's take wrath for example. You have the demon wrath that you're dealing with. And what does this mean? This just means that you have a temper problem. Well, if you try to ignore this problem, if you try and push it out and go, no, that's not me, I'm not angry, I don't get angry, nope, that's not me, that's not who I am, it becomes a part of your shadow, and it becomes deeper and darker, and it's going to direct your fate and direct your life, and it's going to possibly lead to addiction, because when you start drinking, guess what? The thing that was your inhibitions go down, and anger gets released, and you're an angry drunk, and then your unconscious is going to keeping you going back to the bottle again and again to release that demon. So to really, conquer oneself is about integration, and integration is about acknowledgement and dealing with a certain pattern or issue or archetype or dynamic in the mind. So you look within your mind and you go, oh, you know what? I'm not going to ignore this problem. I'm going to acknowledge that I have an anger issue. And then what do? Well, you find a way to deal with this. And this can involve going to therapy, talking with a psychiatrist. It can involve finding ways to direct anger in a healthy way. So perhaps you direct your anger towards, helping create a new world, or against certain forms of oppression that you're opposed to. And so you can channel your anger into positivity that way. So do you see how it's about integration and learning how to use these powers of darkness within oneself so that they become actually, a help to your life. Because you can't just cut it off. You can't just ignore it. That doesn't work. That does not work. So you have to, deal with it, acknowledge it, go to therapy, find healthy ways to deal with these issues. But anyway, you can see where in Gnosticism, you have these structures of the mind, structures of the psyche that are being built. And it says their names and their functions you will find in the Book of Solomon. Now, here's the interesting thing. We're going to look at duality, because it says in the presence of these, Zoe, who dwells with Sabaoth, created 7 good androgynous powers. So you always see this dualism in reflected in Gnosticism, where you have forces of darkness and forces of light. And so what is Zoe? Zoe means life. So you had death that death was created, and death, Yaldabaoth creates death, and from death is born these androgynous beings of, grief and lust and lamenting and mourning and weeping and wrath. Then you have life, or Zoe, who sees all this. Life sees this, who's with Sabaoth, and Zoe then creates 7 good androgynous powers. So from life, and says these are the name of the males: not jealous, blessed, joyful, true, not envious, beloved, and trustworthy. And these are the names of the females: peace, gladness, rejoicing, blessedness, truth, love, and faith. And many good and guileless spirits come from these. The accomplishments and their functions you will find in the configurations of the fate of heaven beneath the 12. And we don't have that book as far as I know. That's lost. Now, again, you see this idea of different structures of the psyche, different functions being built. And you remember the world, this is still at a state prior to when the world has really been formed. The world is formed, but it's not inhabited by human beings or plants or animals or anything like this. So this is really an idea that's occurring with mental powers here. So if we continue, and we're going to, this is an important point. Well, let's see. Okay, so this is where, see, On the Origin of the World is a very interesting Gnostic text, and it's a lot different than the other ones. And I'll kind of explain why as we go along. It'll become more apparent as we go forward. So far, it's been pretty similar, but let's just, so it says, Yaldabaoth realizes his mistake. So this is interesting. It says, but when the chief creator saw the likeness of Pistis in the waters, he grieved, especially when he heard her voice, which was like the first voice that called to him out of the water. So Pistis is Pistis Sophia. This is basically the mother of Yaldabaoth. And so when Yaldabaoth sees the likeness of his mother reflected in the shadow in the waters and hears her voice, he grieved. When he knew that this was the one who named him, his mother, he groaned and was ashamed on account of his transgression. And when he actually knew that an enlightened, immortal human existed before him, he was greatly disturbed. Okay, so what is this? Okay, this is important, and it's going to tie into the concept of death as well, this idea of a human. And it's going to have to do with the power of a human. So last time we essentially saw I think Sophia, I believe it was Sophia, told Yaldabaoth basically like, hey, what are you doing? You're being a dick. You're building all these, chaotic realms. You're claiming to be the only God. What are you doing? And I'm pretty sure at that point she said something along the lines of, there's going to be a human that's going to destroy everything that you've done or is going to undo you, etc. And it seems like they're alluding to Jesus Christ. But okay, so here's the thing. So it says, when he knew that an enlightened immortal human existed before him, he was greatly disturbed, because previously he had said to all the gods and their angels, I am God, and there is no other God but me. So what are we seeing here? What's important to take away from this? Humans are God. This is what's important to understand, and why Yaldabaoth is not real happy with human beings, because humans are God. When he saw that there was an immortal human, he was disturbed because he said, I am God and there is no God but me. So he is recognizing that a human as God exists. But this is important to understand, though. This is not a human being in a physical body. This is a pattern of the perfect human. So you can understand that according to Gnosticism, we aren't these bodies. These bodies, according to Gnosticism, are actually prisons that Yaldabaoth created. And we're going to jump into that in just a second, because this also has to do with death as well. It has to do with part of the prison of the human body. So, yeah, we'll get to this. So, let's just keep reading. For when he had been afraid that they might know. Okay, so for he, Yaldabaoth, had been afraid that they might know that another existed before him and condemn him. But he, like a fool, despised the condemnation and acted recklessly and said, if something exists before me, let it appear so that we might see its light. And immediately light came out of the eighth heaven above and passed through all the heavens of the earth. So, yeah, essentially he's saying, all right, well, if you really exist, prove it. And then light from the realm of light comes shining down. When the chief creator saw that the light was beautiful, as it shone forth, he was amazed and very much ashamed. When the light appeared, a human likeness, which was very wonderful, was revealed within it, and no one saw it except the chief creator alone and the forethought who was with him. But its light appeared to all the powers of the heavens, therefore they were disturbed by it. So, let me just read this part real quick, and then I want to get into an important point. So then when Forethought saw the messenger, she became enamored of him, but he hated her because she was in darkness. Moreover, she desired to embrace him, but she was not able. When she was unable to quench her love, she poured out her light upon the earth. From that day, the messenger was called Adam of Light, which is interpreted the enlightened man of blood. And earth upon which the light spread was called Holy Adamus, which is interpreted as the holy steel-like earth. At that time, all the authorities began to honor the blood of the virgin, and the earth was purified because of the blood of the virgin, but especially the water was purified by the likeness of Pistis Sophia, who appeared to the chief creator in the waters. Rightly, then, it has been said through the waters, since the holy waters give life to everything, it purifies it too. I'm just trying to, there's a certain section. Okay, let's just, let's move on from that because I want to discuss this. So we have this idea of Yaldabaoth encountering this idea of humanity and actually being like feeling ashamed. And we'll see later that it goes into more detail, but it skips around a lot. But anyway, you have the other archons that actually even kind of make fun of Yaldabaoth by saying, like, you said you were the only god, but look, this human exists. So there's this idea of the deification of humanity, that humans are God. Now, I want to jump over to the secret book of John for a minute because it gives a little more nuance here. So basically, the secret book of John is another Gnostic text. It's similar to On the Origin of the World. Yaldabaoth exists. Yaldabaoth and the Archons, Sophia, all the same characters basically are here and involved in a very similar thing. Now, here's the idea, though. When Yaldabaoth in the secret book of John beholds this perfect human, and remember, this perfect human isn't anything like a body. This perfect human is, it's divine. We're so used to thinking of human beings as being bodies, but it's this godlike divine entity that is this human, and we can see. I'm going to start reading because this is going to clear things up and make more sense. In the secret book of John, there's a section called Humanity Begins. And it says, then came a voice from the highest realms, again, the realms of light, saying, the man exists and the son of man. Yaldabaoth, the chief ruler, heard it. He thought it came from his mother. He did not know the true source of the voice. The Holy Mother Father, perfect providence, image of the invisible, Father of everything, in whom everything has come to be. So essentially, this is emanating from the One, which is the true God, which is the realm of divine light, which is the all that there is, the everything. And so you have this everything where the first human is being emanated from. Remember, this is not on earth. This is not a physical creation. This is like the divine human. It says the first man, this is the one who appeared to them. He appeared in the form of a human being, and all of the realms of the chief ruler quaked. The foundations of the abyss moved. So you can see, and this is a point that a lot of people bring up, and why I want to address it, because in Gnosticism, it's that humanity is more powerful than the creator God. And a lot of people come to me and they're like, well, wait, this doesn't make sense. How can they be more powerful than the creator God? I don't understand. Didn't the creator God create humanity? So according to the secret book of John in Gnosticism, humanity is God, essentially. It's an emanation of God. It's a particular form, a structure that emanates from God. And when it appears, all the realms of the rulers, the heavens and the abyss quaked. And the human illuminated the waters above the world of matter. His image shone in those waters. So above the realm of matter is this other realm that Yaldabaoth can kind of get an idea of, but can't enter those realms because it is higher than him. So all the demons and the first ruler together gazed up toward the underside of the newly shining waters. Through that light, they saw the image in the waters. So you can kind of imagine that, you know how we as humans kind of conceptualize the idea of heaven in a very fictional way, where it's like, oh, the mighty heavens, you know? Well, in the realm of Yaldabaoth, that's the realm they're kind of looking up to. They're like, oh, you know, the realm of divine light, and in the realm of divine light is the human. So the human is this powerful God force compared to Yaldabaoth and the archons and the rulers, which are quaking and shaking at just the presence of this being. And that all the demons and the first rulers together gazed up towards the underside of the newly shining waters. Through that light, they saw the image in the waters. Yaldabaoth said to his subordinate demons, let's create a man according to the image of God and our own likeness, so that his image will illuminate us. Now, so here's what they're essentially going to do. It says each one through another's power created aspects of the man. Each added a characteristic corresponding to the psychic factors they had seen in the image above. They made a creature of substance in the likeness of that perfect man, and they said, let's call him Adam, so that his name will give us the power of light. So essentially, they begin to craft this human. And first, they don't even craft the body, they craft the psyche. Right? They start to create the structure of the psyche. All these demons are creating the psyche. So even in the spiritual realm, they're creating this sort of spiritual body. And then they create, I'm not going to read this, maybe later. I've done a video on the secret book of Adam, secret book of John, if you want to go watch my playlist. I've been meaning to maybe update it because it's been years ago since I've done that. So I've been thinking about revisiting it, but there is a playlist if you want to watch it. But essentially what's happening here is that I'm trying to. Okay, yeah, all right. So anyway, you have these demons that are constructing this human. So basically, here's what they're saying. They're going, okay, look, whoa, there's this powerful godlike being, and we can see its image reflected up in the waters. What we want to do, we want to create that so that we can have that power too. So they kind of want to copy it. But what they're going to do is they're going to create a really bad and malformed copy of this. So you can kind of think of the perfect human as sort of like this blueprint that they're trying to copy, but they don't do it very well. If you're familiar with Platonic philosophy, this is very similar to the domain of forms in the world of matter, which is an imperfect copy of the perfect realm of forms. Gnosticism is very, very similar to Platonic philosophy with the Christian mythos. So anyway, you have these demons constructing this human, right? So you have this first the psyche, and then it ends up creating the body as well. And Essentially what ends up happening is that they create this psychic structure of the psyche. They create this body, but it's just kind of there, lifeless, and it's not doing anything because it doesn't have any life force in it. So what Yaldabaoth does is breathes into it, and what essentially happens is that so in the Secret Book of John, Yaldabaoth has some of the power of the light in because he is a creation of Sophia. But when he breathes into humanity, he gives humanity that power of light. So and essentially, I don't have time to get into the whole story because it's very, very interesting. Yaldabaoth was actually tricked into giving humanity its power of light by Sophia, or the five lights as advisors to Yaldabaoth. But anyway, they basically tricked Yaldabaoth to do this. So Yaldabaoth starts to breathes his power into this human body, and it's just at this point, is this just yeah, so it breathes it into the body, and it says it entered the human body, and the human body moved, it grew powerful, it shone, and then Yaldabaoth's demonic forces envied the man. Through their united efforts, he had come into being, they had given their power to him, and his understanding was far greater than those who created him, and greater than that of the chief ruler himself. When they realized that he shone with light and could think better than they could, and was naked of evil, they took him and cast him down into the lower depths of the material world. Okay. So there is so much to this story. I'm just going to describe it real fast to you. Essentially, what happens is they create this creature of human. Yaldabaoth gets tricked into giving this human the power of light, and because this human was modeled on this perfect blueprint, it's actually more powerful than Yaldabaoth because it was modeled on this perfect pattern. So this being comes to life and is extremely powerful because Yaldabaoth has given life to this being that was modeled on this divine blueprint of humanity. And Yaldabaoth and his forces don't like this at all. They get kind of pissed and kind of freaked out by all this, essentially, and throw it down to the material world. And this is a starting point between a huge battle between Yaldabaoth and humanity. And essentially, the battle is, in Gnosticism, humanity trying to realize what it is, and Yaldabaoth trying to keep humanity ignorant of what it is. And we see this first. Yaldabaoth traps it in a body, and Yaldabaoth creates death. Death being, it doesn't create death, but, specifically in the Secret Book of John, it says makes him subject to dying. So makes him finite and makes death, be a thing that occurs. All this starts to, he makes him subject to dying, traps him in a body. Then this divine being has what's known as Epinoia, or purposeful thought, within its rib cage. This divine light of Epinoia. And so Yaldabaoth tries to remove the divine light from Adam, and from that divine light of Epinoia creates Eve. So, and in the Secret Book of John, it says, it's kind of funny. It kind of pokes fun a little bit, or basically says what would become the Bible is wrong. It's like, basically they say Eve didn't come from a rib, because in the Bible it says that God created Eve from the rib of Adam. Well, in this book says, no, that's wrong. Yaldabaoth created Eve from the power that was, within the shining light that Yaldabaoth reached in between his rib cage to take this light and create woman. So the reason why he did this, basically, by the way, was to separate Adam from Epinoia, to basically split this being in two, because Epinoia is the power of purposeful thought. You can kind of think of it sort of like self-awareness in a certain way, just awareness. So you have this battle between, Yaldabaoth traps him in a body, splits him in two, But then Adam and Eve end up having a child named Seth, and Seth is sort of the union of the two again. So in Seth comes the union of Adam, or mind, and Eve, Epinoia, and then Seth represents the portion of humanity that has the ability to understand what it is. So then you have this idea of humans starting to realize what they are. Yaldabaoth doesn't like that. He wipes out humanity with a flood because they're not worshiping him. But anyway, it's just very, very interesting to look at it from this perspective of Gnosticism, which, Gnosticism is the word founded on the word gnosis, which in Greek means knowledge. So the whole idea of Gnosticism is the battle of Yaldabaoth trying to keep humanity in ignorance and humanity coming to realize what it is. So it's the battle of ignorance and knowledge. So you can see it's a huge difference from Christianity, mainstream Christianity, which is just faith in God and avoiding sin, where Gnosticism is all about all these allegories about the battle of ignorance and knowledge and coming to realize that we are divine. And Yaldabaoth is constantly devising all these different ways to get us to forget that we are divine. And dying is one of the many, many things that Yaldabaoth subjects humanity to try and keep it in ignorance. And you can see the parallel to that too, just in real life here. In our understanding of what we are, the concept of death is very limiting to our coming to know that we are God. Because when we conceive of the concept of death, well, we think we're limited. We think we're finite. We can't be God. We die. We're limited human beings. We can't be God. We're finite. We're mortal. We die. And so you see that the idea of death is one of the many things that limit our understanding of what we truly are, and that is God's. You can even see, it's just, how can you be God? If you're God, then float in the sky right now. Or if you're God, how come you die? Because it's about coming to recognize what we are internally, not in these physical bodies, not in these vehicles and avatars that we inhabit. These vehicles and avatars are limitations of us, but the thing that's important to understand, our bodies aren't actually negative things. The Gnostics looked at bodies as being very, very negative. They looked at them being as prisons. We know that that's not the case. They're not actually prisons. They're just interfaces which allow us to interact in this world. It's kind of like if you put on a VR headset that lets you go into the VR world. Now, are you limited? Well, yeah, you're totally limited in the VR world. You're subject to the rules of that world, but it's not a prison. You're in that VR world because you want to interact with that VR world. It's part of the game that you're playing. So this is part of the game that we're playing. These avatars that we have are part of our interface, our controlling mechanism, our interface mechanism to be able to interact in this world. So they're not necessarily prisons, but you can see the point of the Gnostics of all these different systems, all these different things that one has to conquer, all those demons of ignorance and wrath and death and dying, and ultimately Yaldabaoth, which one could interpret as the ego that one has to conquer. And as always, whenever I talk about this stuff, I always just want to say, I want to be crystal clear. Remember that you need to take care of your body. As souls, as minds, as zetas, as beings of frequencies, we're eternal, but our bodies are finite, and we want to take care of yourself. You want to be healthy, and you want to, that's very important to be able to have a healthy interaction in the world. So I always want to emphasize that. But that being said, there is a lot more to talk about. On the Origin of the World is a very, very strange one indeed. So we're going to continue this next week, and if you and I do have a whole playlist on the Secret Book of John. Check that out if you want to see me do that, again, if you want to see me revisit the Secret Book of John, let me know, because it was years ago that I did that, and I feel like we could have even more interesting discussions on it now, so let me know that. But as always, hey, please like and subscribe, share this video. If you have questions, comments, put them in the comment section. And if you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. It is the best way. You get access to weekly secret live streams, all our members only videos, and it's the best way to support. Any tier on Patreon or tier 2 or higher on YouTube gets access to the members only videos. And as always, don't feel pressured or obligated to support monetarily. You don't have to. Seriously. There are plenty of free ways you can support by liking, subscribing, and sharing. I appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to everyone who does support, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, and thank you so much to the Halloween Mom, who's our newest supporter. Thank you. DB, Enki, Nuselina, Paul Rogers, Eric Fire, Masam, Ryan, Christopher Smith, and everyone else. Thank you very much.